Hello, dear friends. Welcome to this program called Our Moments with God, where I try to reflect with you in a simple and in a rather informal way my daily reflections about the daily mass readings. It could be both the first reading or the second reading, or a little bit of both the readings, with the hope that this will help us in our spiritual journey and in our search for God and to build a relationship with Jesus. And if you are interested to subscribe to this channel, which I would recommend you to do, then please go to the end of the video, and there you will see on the right hand at the bottom my picture. And at that time, you just please press that picture of mine and you will see the option for subscription. Thank you. Yesterday we already began our readings in the ordinary time, and if you remember, yesterday was a very powerful statement by one of the believers who said, "Lord, I believe, help my unbelief." Today I want to begin with the first reading. Particularly for those, it may be very interesting, as I often hear people say, "Father, God does not listen to my prayer," or "I don't know why God is not listening to my prayer," or "I don't know how long I must pray for this request before God hears me out." You know, St. James has a very interesting advice for us today in the first reading from the letter of St. James, chapter 4, verses 1 to 10. He starts by scolding the people a little bit at first, but then he comes to the important point in the middle of the reading, and he says, and I will read, "You ask, but you do not receive, because you ask wrongly, to spend it on your passions. Adulterers, do you not know that to be a lover of the world means enmity with God? Therefore, whoever wants to be a lover of the world makes himself an enemy of God." And then he goes further with his instructions about how God is actually graceful and he wants to bless us with his graces and blessings. But because we are on the wrong journey, and that's why, I mentioned in the beginning of my reflections, it is an attempt from my side to help us in our spiritual journey, not worldly journey, which is what James is trying to say about how the world thinks. And if you are thinking in worldly terms, then of course, as St. James says, you are in enmity with God, particularly when those things that we are after do not comply with God's commandments and God's wishes. And that takes us on to the gospel reading today. The gospel, of course, is also from the Gospel of St. Mark, chapter 9. But I will take from the middle of the gospel what Jesus is saying. "They came to Capernaum, and once inside the house, Jesus began to ask them, 'What were you arguing about on the way?' But they remained silent, for they had been discussing among themselves on the way who was the greatest. Then he sat down, called the 12, and said to them, 'If anyone wants to be first, he shall be the last of all and the servant of all.'" You see what they were arguing about? These were Jesus's disciples. They were listening to him, they were watching him, and yet they were not really affected by his teachings. They were not affected by accompanying him. They were still arguing about who is the greatest among them. Where does that come from? Who is the greatest? Who does this kind of argument? Who is the greatest? Not who is the humblest, but who is the greatest. It is among those who think of the worldly values as the most important, because the worldly values are: who is the wealthiest? Ambani, Adani, Bill Gates, Elon Musk. Who is the richest? They are interested in that. But Jesus is saying, whoever wants to be first among you must be last. And anyone who wishes to be first, he shall be the last of all and servant of all. And then he brings a child in front of them and says, whoever receives one child such as this in my name receives me, and whoever receives me receives not me, but the one who sent me. What does a child signify? A child signifies innocence, purity, humility, love, and affection. And that is what Jesus is trying to say, or James is pointing out, to the spiritual values, not the values of the world. I wish that slowly we find our feet in the spiritual foundation provided to us by the gospel. I wish you all the very best, and if you would like to subscribe to this channel, please do it now. Thank you.